Welcome to Destination Linux, the celestial canvas of open source artistry, where every commit paints a divine stroke in the masterpiece of tech freedom, inspired by the breathtaking brushwork of Okami. I'm your Amaterasu this week, Ryan, bounding through the Linux plains with my celestial tech pack, ready to restore the world from proprietary blight. Jill is our Sakuya, graceful animation professor, goddess with a vintage PC shrine, conjuring UX designs faster than she can bloom a cherry tree with a flick of her divine brush. Her creed, if it's not open source, it's just Orachi, cursed shadow. Michael is our Waka, flashy marketing savvy trickster, weaving Linux promos with prophetic flair and designing websites as dazzling as a moonlight katana swing. His mantra, code with elegance or fade into the mortal muck. This week's Divine Quest, we're diving. What, Michael? Is it too much? Too deep?
I mean, it's good. I'm actually impressed that you were able to say all those correctly.
Well, I had
you did a good job.
I had them phonetically spelled out for me, so that kind of helped. This week's Divine Quest, we're diving into an interview with Máirín Duffy, Red Hat's UX design wizard, exploring her artistry in open source and AI, and oh my gosh, so many amazing things. You're going to love our interview with Mo, so you've got to stay tuned for that. We're also going to tackle our feedback and unearth more open source gems and shine like a celestial ink stroke. So summon your celestial brush, sync your repos, and remember, in open source, we paint freedom with every stroke. No demons can dim our lights. Let's howl. This is Destination Linux. This week in our community feedback, we have feedback from Andrew, who says, "Hey, y'all." I'm guessing Andrew's from the South. Just a thought. I don't know.
Probably based on that. However, I am adamantly an advocate for saying that y'all should be adopted by everyone who speaks English because it is just efficient and effective. So,
hey, y'all. I'm fairly new to Linux and have been enjoying the podcast. Thank you very much. I'm curious what your all's daily driver for distro and desktop environments. If you use multiple, what are your use cases for each? Ryan is clearly the third best.
Okay, so first,
is that good? Like the third best? That sounds pretty good.
I mean, third best is a good way of saying last, but that's a different thing. But I will say that it's interesting that maybe this person isn't from the South because they said, "Hey, y'all," and then what you all daily drive, because it would have been like y'all again if it was a Southern person, you know?
What
you constantly just use y'all. That's what I think. That's the indicator.
So, Jill, we are on a very big time restriction. So you're going to have to be very quick with your answers here. I'm going to tell you, I have an Arch install, and it utilizes the GNOME desktop. I have a KDE install on a Ubuntu. Actually, it's Kubuntu. It's actually Kubuntu, and that's what I'm using right now. And I've got lots of Raspbian systems, Raspberry Pis and things running that. And then I have Kali Linux. So use cases for all of those are fairly simple to know for the streaming and everything else. Kubuntu is one I've been trying out recently. For Kali Linux is for all of my cybersecurity stuff. And obviously Raspbian is part of all my Raspberry Pis, which control 3D printers and everything else in my home. So that's kind of my use cases. Jill, what do you got?
Oh, so I'll just pick 3 computers. How about that?
Out of 700, yeah.
Yeah. So I've got Ubuntu 24.04 right now, and I'm in Window Maker. And I also have a machine with Debian on it that I use to do show notes. That's one of my big show notes computer. Although whenever we cover a distro, I install that and write my show notes on that distro. Because I have many machines I use for doing distro testing and whatnot. And then I also have actually 3 computers, gaming rigs I use Pop! OS on. And I'm looking forward to Cosmic. But sometimes I run the GNOME Pop! OS, but other times I'll go into Window Maker, XFCE, and Enlightenment, Flexbox. I mean, I use different window managers.
We kind
all
of
the
have
time.
to use everything to answer the question too. Is like every time we have a guest on, I switch to that distro because I want to
Yeah.
get very
Yeah,
familiar with the
absolutely. We
latest
do
one.
because
So
we're yeah.
And we
in a
also
lot of
use
ways.
different desktops because we want to experience them all. So we do actually have experience on all of them.
Mhm.
But yeah, that is a good point. My
Yeah.
systems are the same kind of thing. I have a bunch of different distributions. I used to be a person who only ran one of two things. I only had Kubuntu or I only had Fedora KDE. That's pretty much what I was doing for years. And now I have a variety of different things. I have Linux Mint on one of my machines. I have Kubuntu on another one. Also Fedora KDE. Did I mention those before? And also right now on this framework laptop, I have
Stop
Bazite.
showing that.
Woohoo!
I'm so jelly.
Bazite's nice.
I'm
Awesome.
so jelly. Look at that.
Oh.
A beautiful framework laptop.
This is a very nice laptop.
Stop it. Put it down.
But Bazite's on here. That's
quit throwing your money in my face.
I've been playing with Bazite recently, and it is awesome. It's kind of like it's interesting because we talk about Bluefin in the interview, and they're very similar. But Bluefin is like the GNOME approach, and Bazite has GNOME and KDE. So guess which one I'm using?
Yeah.
KDE.
Of course,
GNOME.
Plasma.
KDE Plasma. Okay.
Oh, interesting. Windows. You're using Windows.
And I
How
like
dare
to
you.
run Garuda on. I got several laptops with Garuda on them. That's
we gave you 3, right?
yeah.
And then now you're still.
Yeah, I can keep
And
going.
by the way, Michael, did you notice she brought up the whole Pop! OS thing again?
Mm-hmm.
So System 76 clearly has gotten to
They
Jill.
They didn't let us know if they actually paid her off. They didn't tell us, but it does feel
clear.
like
It's very clear. She's like, I want to let you know I have 3 systems that use Pop! OS.
3 of them.
Wink,
Yeah.
wink.
And in fact, I use the GNOME version and also other things that they don't even ship just because.
Well, you know what the real truth is here on this podcasting rig? I literally have 6 distros installed on this system.
Yeah.
So
We're the worst people to ask, Andrew, because I know you probably wanted hey, real good answer.
Like a suggestion. You're like, we're
Yeah,
recommending. We are the worst to ask. That's true because we have so many.
We have to test so much software and distros, and
and we talk about all the different distros, so it's good to experience those before you're talking about it, because there are times content creators don't really talk about the things they're using, and that's not great. So we like to try out the stuff we're talking about,
not in a VM, on actual full metal.
That's right.
Metal alchemists. All right, Michael, there's 2 things people need to do. They need to catch this interview, and they need to go to Sandfly, because as Linux users, we know what's up. Security is non-negotiable. With threats getting smarter, your security tools need to keep pace without dragging your system down. Traditional agents, they slow you down and leave blind spots, and it's time for a smarter approach. That's why Destination Linux is proud to be sponsored by Sandfly Security, the revolutionary agentless platform designed for Linux. Go to destinationlinux.net/Sandfly and see how Sandfly can transform your security strategy. Michael, we've received tons of comments recently, and one of the themes I'm noticing is people want us to create a video talking about installing Sandfly. So I think it's really interesting and something we're going to have to look at. Maybe me and Michael will get together and finally do, it's been a long time, some type of collab, or maybe a Michael, Jill, Ryan collab on installing Sandfly. We'll figure something cool.
That'd be cool. I think it's been a while since we actually had a collab, so we definitely need to do that. Other than the show, I guess we collab every week, but different.
Exactly. Well, Sandfly also for businesses is offering a completely free trial, so it's definitely something you're going to want to check out. I mean, we've talked about all the security risks out there. Timothy Lisko of DigitalOcean says Sandfly is one of the most exciting pieces of security tech they've seen recently. Excited to not only be a customer, but also offer integrated solution to our customers through the DigitalOcean marketplace. This technology addresses Linux security in a really novel and compelling way. All of these new security threats that keep popping up. We have the CEO of Sandfly on, and CEO will tell you, Sandfly will catch this stuff because of the way this system works. It doesn't just detect, it responds. It revolutionizes security with SSH key tracking, password auditing, drift detection, covers threats from all angles, whether your systems are in the cloud or on-premise or in embedded devices. It doesn't matter. They cover it. Sandfly ensures your security without headaches of an agent-based solution. Experience security that's not just effective, but gives you peace of mind. no agents, no downtime, just cutting edge protection.
And if you want to save some money on the Home Lab edition, you can use the discount code Destination50 and get 50% off the entire account. And it's not just like, just one time. You get 50% off the year. All of that. It's just such a great deal. Destination50 to use that coupon code. And dive into the future of Linux security at destinationlinux.net/Sandfly. That's destinationlinux.net/SANDFLY.
You know what, Michael? It's time. We need Mo money and we need Mo interviews. Let's get to Mo.
I'm disturbed by this, and also I love it.
It's great.
The fact that you put in the effort to go get those glasses to do that,
Here.
most people would just be lazy and do the little animation GIF thing. No, I'm going to get the real glasses.
Not me.
8-bit.
I'm a pro,
I like it. Let's get to the interview.
Today, we are thrilled to have Máirín Duffy of Red Hat on the Destination Linux show. Máirín, passionate advocate for open source and a trailblazer in user experience design for over 2 decades. Contributed to more projects than we could possibly name, and most recently focusing on AI in the RHEL open source and Linux space, including working on one of our favorite projects from the convention, the Red Hat Summit, which was Lightspeed. On top of all of this, Máirín's a huge champion for open source tools. One of the ones that I saw a lot when your name was mentioned was Inkscape. So we're going to have to get into your uses of that. Máirín, welcome to the show.
Hi, happy to be here.
So
Yay.
we had an amazing conversation with you at the Red Hat Summit, and we just had to bring you onto the show so that everyone else could experience your awesomeness. You've worked on so many critical projects and are a huge part of the open source community. But before we get started into all the cool stuff you're working on, I want to get your origin story. So take us back to the beginning of how did you first discover Linux? What was your first distro, and what sparked your passion to really start in that user experience arena?
Sure. So I will say the origin of the origin story is I learned how to read as a 4-year-old playing text parser adventure games on an old IBM XT.
That's awesome.
My uncle worked for a large bank that I will not name, that when they would get rid of the old systems, I just throw them on the loading dock. So he brought one home to me and my brother, and that was the family computer. I actually at one point had a PC Junior too, which didn't have a hard drive, and that was interesting, but it was also fun because it had the infrared keyboard. But yeah, so I grew up with computers. I'm an elder millennial, so I'm a little bit young to have grown up with computers. And as time went on, my family was fairly technical. So, for instance, when I was in middle school, the family had OS2 on our home computer, which was also not normal.
Yeah, OS2 Warp. I only ran across that a few times in my whole computer career. So.
We had OS2 before the Warp version.
Gotcha. Oh.
Yeah. And we did dual boot, and I had to play my games, I would have to modify IRQ and DMA numbers. So, yeah, that was fun. That sucked, though, right? Kind of like
Oh, yeah.
So, and when I was in high school, so my older brother went to the local university for computer science. And at the time, how he was supposed to compile his homework was to telnet, which I know at the time that's what we did, telnetted, to Unix systems on campus. And he couldn't do that because we had one phone line and I was a teenage girl. Yak, 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 yak. So he couldn't actually do his homework. So one day he brought Red Hat Linux. I think it was 5.1. It was the Manhattan release. He brought that home because it had GCC, and he could compile his homework without having to fight with me to get the phone line free. So that's my Linux origin story. He put it on the family computer. And what I liked about it, because before we had Linux, and he had experimented too with he used to get cheapware or cheap bytes, these disks in the mail, and he played with FreeBSD and Slackware and stuff, but the Red Hat was the one that stuck because at the time, in historical context, it had an installer, and it was nice for the time. It had X configurator, because remember that was a big bear to get a graphical interface in Linux. It was so hard. And PPP, getting the modem access, just all the tools that came with Red Hat, and the fact you had RPMs, so you didn't have to compile everything. It was nice. So it was the one that stuck around, and I liked it because before we had it, I was one of those weirdos that will like try to customize the other operating system. And like we'd have boot up screens, and like instead of Windows 95, I'd make it like Windows 666 with like flames and stuff. But you had to, to do just simple stuff like customize icons. You could only do so much, and then you had to start like doing hex editors and stuff like that. So it wasn't easy, and it was kind of a pain. But I liked how with Linux you could customize like everything about the way that it displayed. You could do your whole completely custom setup. You could change your window manager and like do these, like Enlightenment came out and there was all these weird animations you could do. So I was kind of into the visual theatrics of it at the time and the customizability. But when I went to school, I went to school for computer science. And I also did a design degree as well, like a dual major. And the reason that I did that is because I thought, there's so much potential in this. Like growing up, like my family didn't have money to pay $500 for me to have Photoshop, but I was very interested in computer graphics. So I was using tools like the GIMP, but if you use the GIMP in 1997, 1998, it wasn't great. Like it just wasn't. So, and I'm like, well, it's great that this can do the thing, but man, is it a bear to use? Wouldn't it be great if it was as excellent as what you could buy and anybody could benefit from it? And it would be almost like this public good that, anybody in the community, any kid with no money like me could actually build their skills without having to beg their parents for money they didn't have, right? So that was sort of my driver. And as time went on in school, I ended up getting involved with a project that I went to RPI in Troy, New York. They had a project with the local community called Connected Kids. So we would take old computers that were like, they were donations or something or tax write-off or whatever from local businesses. And we would refurb them with Linux and then put them in community centers to teach kids, just basic computing. And like one of the goals of the project was sort of to bridge the digital divide. And it was in that where I'm like installing these systems and like I'm trying to set it up so like the kids can use them to like do Tux Paint or do the GIMP or do their homework or whatever. And, have any of you been in end user support before? I mean,
oh yeah,
it gets real. And I'm like,
yeah,
man, we just have to fix this and fix this and fix that. And so I ended up this was like now post.com bust, post September 11th. Job market ain't great anyway. So I stayed in school for a human computer interaction degree. And one of the things I'd wanted to focus on was making open source software easier to use. And I kind of figured out quickly that writing papers in journals that cost a lot of money was not going to reach my audience, which was open source developers. So I ended up as part of like a summer research project I had. I wanted to do what's called in the business of user experience and human computer interaction, an ethnographic study of open source developers. A little bit hard because they're geographically distributed, but I had a friend who actually, landed a job at Red Hat. And I was like, oh, so could I sleep on your couch and visit your office and maybe work for free for the summer? But I'm really studying you like a Jane Goodall of the nerds.
Nice.
That is what I did for a summer. I worked with Red Hat's desktop team, met my husband, ended up getting a job because through that experience, I was like, wow, like I could make so much more of a difference by actually just working for a company like Red Hat than producing research. And I could have more impact on what I want to do, which is make free software easier for everybody to use. So that's the whole thing.
That's awesome.
That's a fascinating story. It's amazing that you started, first of all, growing up in a technology family, right, that appreciated technology at a time that was very much emerging. But it's got to be a little trippy that Red Hat was kind of the operating system you all settled on. And now you're such a big part of Red Hat. Like, was that the plan all along? I mean, did you have it in your mind? I'm going to work for this company one day, or is it just the circumstances?
Thing about it is, it was like a dream job for me, to be honest. Really a dream job. I will say when I was in college, I did use Debian.
Oh my goodness.
Had reasons.
Well, that dream
Oh,
career's
yeah.
gone after that comment, It's over. It's over.
This is recording.
So-
I mean,
Of all of the distros at the time, now, mind you, I was trying to get a minor in Japanese, and I was taking heavy Japanese courses, and the Japanese input method situation amongst the distros, it was just so much easier to set up in Debian, and I didn't want to have to like do a dual boot with Windows to do my homework. So I went Debian for a bit. Yeah, I saw other people for a little bit, and I came back. So yeah.
There you go. That's awesome.
I mean, you had a reasonable use case. That makes sense,
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're very interested in your experience with the, UX and stuff with like the various open source projects that you've worked on. Could you share like a pivotal moment early in your career that solidified your commitment to making open source software not just functional but also like a delight?
Yes, that's an excellent question. I would say those early days in the computer lab trying to teach kids how to use Linux was probably like the biggest initial milestone. Is like there's a there, like we really need UX. I would say, okay, this is not the happiest story. Early on when I was in school for computer science, the GIMP was one of the early programs that I really got into and was using a lot. And I tried to contribute to it as sort of a fresh-faced, hey, I'm a computer science student. I love using the GIMP. I'd love to help out. Can I help out? And I kind of got told, go away. We don't need you.
Yeah.
So
that sounds about right.
Yeah.
That era of the GIMP, and actually for multiple eras after that, there's been some various turnovers
It's
of that
improved
project
lately, though, right?
Oh, it's a whole new team.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a whole, that's years
it's
ago.
very different now.
The current team is a completely different set of people.
Yes.
Yeah.
That set me back a bit because there was sort of a period of time where I was then afraid to contribute upstream. And part of it is like, I do code, I do have that background, but I'm not super confident in it. And like the reason that I program isn't because I'm great at or really enjoy or like I'm into that. It's more because I want to deliver the experience to the user, and that was a necessary thing, and it kind of still is now. And being able to be technical, but also have that design sense is super powerful, like just in any endeavor, but especially in open source, because designers in open source, number one, are rare, and number two, can't contribute like in a drive-by fashion. Like if you're, a programmer or whatever, you're a Python dude and you're looking at like the projects that are in Python, you could probably pick off like an easy fix bug or two and kind of wade your way in slowly. As a UX person, you can't just like pick something off that's like a shallow thing. Like the closest you could do maybe is like an icon design. And so that's why like I kind of got known for doing like logos or t-shirt designs or icons. And it's not because that was really like my calling or what I really wanted to do. But what I figured out is like, it's almost like it's an interesting like social structure, the open source community. And when you're coming in and you have a non-traditional for that community background, so for me, like non-traditional background, I'm coming from a UX design centric point of view, whereas everybody else is coming from like a very deeply technical, sometimes down to the kernel programming point of view. So I'm kind of the odd duck out. So it's hard to sort of establish yourself in a community where you're so different. Like I think people do their best work in a high trust, mutual respect environment. And it's hard to build that trust when you're so different. So you have to figure out a way to do it. So what I ended up doing for a lot of projects is, it was sort of an easy thing because a lot of developers will just say, oh yeah, I suck at drawing. Like, oh, I'm bad at art. Oh, look at this thing. I use this GIMP plugin with like the flames to make my logo, and I know it's terrible. So like people are a little bit humble about that stuff openly anyway. So you'd be like, oh yeah, I could do a cool logo for you. And that's sort of the way that you build a little bit of social capital and you kind of worm your way into the project. And I know that sounds like very manipulative and deliberate, and it's not actually how I did it, if that makes sense. I was more like just trying to help. And that was a skill I knew I was confident in that I could do. But it ended up that I was able as a designer to build trust in these projects. And once you kind of get your way in that door, you kind of earn your keep. And the more you earn your keep and you contribute to the community, the more say you can have. And in that way, you're able to do the real UX design work, which is extremely deep. Like UX design impacts like all the way down to how the software is fundamentally architected, right? And a lot of people don't understand that. They think UX is just like this layer you put on top to make it pretty, and it's not. Architectural decisions that you make will impact how performant different functions in the software are. And that slowness that the user witnesses, it negatively impacts the user experience, or even like the way and the ordering and the workflows that you do, that all has critical impact to what the user actually experiences. So it actually is very deeply technical, but it just, because it's not a discipline you can practice in sort of the traditional drive-by, I'll fix a few bugs fashion. It's a more deep, long-term investment in terms of like volunteers. It's hard to get volunteers to contribute at that level. And it's hard to get people who haven't figured out how to like build the social capital in the community to be able to kind of, you know what I mean? Like code speaks for itself sometimes. Like if you just sit on the side and like you code up some new feature and you put in a pull request and it works and it's great, wow, you just got insta credibility. But especially if you're a less technical designer, and there's no shade on less technical designers. Everybody has like, it's an intersectional field. So like people have their different perspectives on it. But like, you're kind of you're showing up and telling other people what to do. And people don't really like being told what to do.
Especially when you're new, which is why you said you had to earn that kind of respect, right? First,
Exactly.
find that thing that got people interested, and it's fascinating. While you're talking, I can't help but think of this meme, this video of a UX designer that's on YouTube. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a box, and the person has a bunch of different shapes, and it's the feeling of a UX designer is what the video is called. And there's all the different holes in the box for like a square, a circle, a triangle. And it's like the UX designer made it perfect. And then the person's like, oh, I got a circle. Let me put it in and the designer's like circle hole. And there's like square hole. And then they keep putting the wrong shapes in the wrong thing. And they're like, that's what it's like as a UX designer. It's a fantastic meme, but it cracks me up because it's about psychology too. Like a lot of times when you're talking to a UX designer, they're thinking of the psychology of the people who will be using it, as far as where the buttons are placed and how the things will act and the speed of it, all of this stuff. And that to me is fascinating because you're right. It's so much deeper than this top layer. Oh, we're just going to move the icon a little bit over here and change the font. Okay, we're done. That's not what that user experience is about. It's very, very scientific. It's very, very much needed in a lot of open source projects as well.
I mean, sometimes it's just about, do we even need this feature, people? Like, is this, it's humbling in a way, but I'm sorry, every developer watching this right now, people don't wake up in the morning wanting to spend as much time as possible in your software. I'm so sorry, but it's true. Like,
you just broke a
they
lot
want to get on with their life. It's there to do a job. They kind of want to spend as little time as possible to get the job done and move on. So yeah, sorry.
It's actually super interesting that you're like the way you were talking about and describing the process and describing how you got into different projects and the experience of interacting with the developers. The whole time I'm just smiling because it's like you're reading my mind, because it's like, hey, I've gone through all of those things and I've gone to the process where the project is like, oh, you're a designer. Great. You want to make an icon? No, that's not exactly what I wanted. Yeah, that's not what I want to do. I mean, I've made them, sure, and I'll make a couple, but like that's not the goal. I want to help out with the actual flow of it, because a lot of times where developers will see designers as like UI people only and not the UX part, and they kind of ignore that piece. And I feel like it's fascinating because of the experience that designers have is like the exact opposite depending on who you're talking to. If you're talking to a developer, it's exactly how Mo is describing it. But in the other way, if you're talking to someone who's not a developer, who's just looking at the visuals, they appreciate the visual in a different way than the developer would. So you have like this one side of like, they don't care about how it works and they really appreciate the visual of it. And then the other side, they really care about how it works and don't care about the visual that much. And I
gotta say though, good design, people don't notice it. They
That's
only
true.
notice it when it's
Yes.
bad.
Yeah.
That's true.
So true.
That's interesting.
But it's nice to think that they would like, I guess if the visual is very like graphical.
Something that's like
yeah.
impactful and get your attention or it's just pretty. You just designed a logo that's pretty or something like that.
Little story for you, Mo, is we hired Michael just to create us an icon, and then he just kept showing up and talking on our podcast, and we haven't been able to get rid of him since.
That's not remotely true.
That's exactly how it happened. Just a little fact, a little show fact.
Oh,
Yeah.
And Mo, there's a lot of similarities with my career as a 3D animator working in the industry. There was always this push and tug with the artists and the developers because we have the 3D software and, most of it's not made very well. So that was always a thing. There were times I'd actually talked with the developers of Maya was one and Autodesk was another many moons ago.
But those conversations are so valuable, and having that sort of tight inner loop with sort of like the artisan and the maker of the tools the artisan uses, like that's so critical to making an amazing tool.
I mean, it's actually kind of interesting that you say that because it reminds me of like the experience of getting into the project and the high barrier there is for the typical user or the typical designer going into a project to do that is pretty high. But once you get in and you have the conversation with the developers and they get it and you actually get in sync, it is like the greatest type of collaboration you can have.
Yeah, absolutely.
I will say, I'm going to put this point out there. I've said this before to others. One of the things that's kind of interesting is sort of that culture and open source of like somebody files a bug or they say, oh, this should do this thing. And, I get it. I've been there. Like, you really don't want to deal with it. So you're like, patches gratefully accepted. And it's like, well, I can't write the patch. Well, now we have AI coding assistants. And,
that's interesting.
Yes. And I get like, I have a lot of opinions on this stuff. One of the things is I don't think AI coding assistants, like for all of this AI kind of stuff, I don't think it's the death of expertise. I think you need expertise to direct it in a productive way. And it's interesting because more broadly now I'm seeing people, and especially because I follow some people in sort of the UX and design space saying, it's finally our moment because now that you can implement anything you want, at your fingertips with an AI agent or whatever, now we are more important than ever because we tell you what to actually implement that will have a user impact. Whereas before we were begging you to code it, right? Now you're looking to us to help you figure out what you should make. So that's sort of an interesting thing. And where I've seen specifically to open source, where I've seen some discussions go is almost like, oh my, is this going to be the death of open source? Because people don't need my library here. They can just re-implement it using a coding assistant. Like, should I keep maintaining this thing? Does it still have value? And I would say that I would like to be more optimistic and hopeful about the impact of these tools on open source and just in generally sort of like collective community built things, including software. AI is lowering the bar for somebody to be able to contribute code. So like for somebody who, say, like me, I'm not the world's best coder. I know enough. I've studied computer science. I know the basics of best practices. I've worked on software teams for a long time, but I'm just not a great coder. But I have enough to understand and to direct others from years of doing it as a UX designer, how to build the thing. So now I don't have to rely on others and I don't have to ask others for their time as much. I'm empowered to actually sort of build things on my own and then work with others to make sure that, the actual code quality is good. And in a similar form, like for a lot of those folks who maybe previously had tried to contribute or file an RFE or file a bug against an open source project, and they got that whole patches gratefully accepted, well, now they might actually, because they're like, to Jill's point, where you're an artist and you're working with the developers of the tools that you use to create your art, there's sort of an interdependency there, and you're dependent on them to craft the tool in the shape of what you want. But every user is the best designer of the best solution for them, because they are the ones who most intimately understand the problem they're trying to solve. So each individual user, like I'm filing an RFE because I have a need and I understand that need deeply. Now I can understand that need or that problem domain, if it's a medical space, a finance space, whatever, I understand the domain. And I don't need to understand coding as deeply because the tools sort of lower the bar for participation. So all of this to say, I'm hoping that sort of this influx of AI tools leads to a renaissance of open source, where because the bar for contribution is somewhat lowered, we have way more people with really deep expertise in other domains where those brain cells don't have to be occupied with coding. They could be occupied with other things that could bring value to open source. So, I'm hoping, I understand there's a lot of AI slop out there. I understand that there's a lot of like PRs coming in that are essentially AI slop, and we'll have to figure out sort of the social structure for accounting for that. But I do think it's a net positive, both for individual users.
Super helpful for people to find bugs very quickly. It's been super helpful for writing base code, for getting the skeleton of a code. But I think just like a UX designer, you can do some design work that AI can help you with. But then you have the real pros who can go in there and like make something incredible, amazing, and blow you away. And I feel like that with the coding too. Like you can get a lot of work done with the coding, especially if you're somebody who already knows the fundamentals and things with AI. But then those master coders still come in. It's still on a different level. Maybe AI will get there eventually, but I think there's a place for everybody is what I'm saying. And AI will just speed up the simpler tasks. And you're right, it enables a lot of people like yourself who've worked in the field for a long time. So you understand all of the, you can probably read the code like the Matrix. Maybe you don't sit there and write it all. And now you can direct an AI to help you fill in the gaps of your knowledge. That's fantastic. Like there's some really good use cases. We talk about AI a lot on this show, and there's a lot of good. And then there's some negative too on it. And it's going to be interesting how it all pans out. But so far there's been, it's been very useful for me in my life. So I enjoy the tools. And I think you have a really good perspective on it.
Yeah, Máirín, that was actually beautifully stated. I love how you explained it, because that was, it's been something that I've been struggling with too, because I teach 3D animation and motion graphics. So it's really, it helps you. The one thing it does is it helps you, it helps me train my students to think in a different way. So they're not going necessarily after those entry-level jobs, but a higher position, with management and production and whatnot.
Well, with AI, I can just tell it to animate a dolphin and water scene and it's done, right?
I know.
I don't even need an animator anymore. Just make my own Pixar.
It's so frustrating. Yes.
Who comes up with the idea to have the dolphin in the water? And why is the dolphin in the water? And what is the narrative to that? And how is it meant to make people feel? Like AI can't do that.
Hold on, let me ask ChatGPT. I don't know the answer.
And that's exactly, Máirín. So I have one of my last projects I had was my students pick their favorite AI image that they create. It could be, a dragon walking around or whatever. And then they have to make a storyboard and do an animatic and present a story of that picture, and then model it and create an animation from it.
Very cool idea, Jill.
Yeah.
Like reverse AI. It's
reverse AI. Exactly.
Using AI as the inspiration.
Now make it matter.
When Linux first kind of became a thing, it kind of made Unix that anybody could get. Like with my whole origin story, I mean, for my brother to buy a compiler to run at home, I think he would have had to buy Borland for like $300. Like, that's not super accessible, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, having a compiler that anybody, I mean, that was a gate that you would have to have a financial, means to be able to proceed through that gate in order to actually compile code and build your own software. That's been blown through. And I'm just hoping that like AI is just going to help people blow through gates like that, where it's either like a level of expertise. The other problem with it, though, of course, is like the level of hardware required to really utilize it in a way that's like you fully control what's going on and you're able to have full flexibility that you can fine tune it to your own needs. That kind of sucks, but we'll see. I mean, hopefully it will have like a Moore's law type thing going on where like we get more efficient with like
better for the billions they're spending on it. Better be a lot more than Moore's law. We got to create a new law.
So going away from AI, let's talk about something really fun. So you've been a vocal advocate for software freedom, particularly in creative tools like Inkscape. What is it about open source creative tools that gets you so excited? And how do you see them empowering users compared to proprietary alternatives?
Absolutely. So I think the thing with open source creative tools is number one. So, okay, I have a long background on this. When I was a high school student, I was in an engineering summer camp. And in that engineering summer camp, we learned how to make animations with a piece of software called Macromedia Director.
Yeah. I used to teach that.
I loved Director, and I kind of became like the director person of my dorm at college.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And it's interesting because somewhere in between my freshman year of college and my senior year of college, Director was shelved as a project. They adopted Flash. I feel like they might have acquired a company to get Flash, and this was Macromedia, which then got acquired by Adobe. But what this meant was portfolio projects that I had created for classes in my freshman and sophomore years, by the time I was a senior in college, I couldn't open the files. They had bit rot in less than a 4-year degree, which is just unconscionable, especially like, dude, like Director was expensive. Like, and I paid for a legit license. So that kind of made me a little angry. And I was kind of like, never again. I'm going to do the whole open format thing. I'm just going to stubbornly, and when I first encountered Inkscape, it actually wasn't Inkscape. It was a project called, I'm pronouncing it wrong, but it was called Sodipodi.
Sodipodi, yeah, that's it.
And it was like a precursor to Inkscape. And I think Inkscape ended up eventually being like a fork of it. But I encountered that during that summer. I kind of drove out to Red Hat and said, hey, let me study you. And so that was sort of when I started. I think the first thing I built with Sodipodi was the logo for DBus. So
That's awesome.
the DBus project, I used that. And the fact that it used the SVG format was everything to me. And what I love about how Inkscape, just like as a community developing the software, they kind of focus on the standard and like, we're going to implement the standard to a T. Like we will be an editor that conforms completely to the standard. Because of course, if you've worked with other programs that support SVG, they don't always follow the spec, which kind of sucks. And it makes for incompatibilities, and that sucks too. So very passionate about Inkscape just because, like, number one, I really needed it. And it did a good job. The fact that I can open up files that I made in Inkscape, like, that are over 20 years old and like no issues.
Happy.
That's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And
I'm kind of upset though that it's not named Sodipodi anymore, honestly.
Oh,
I had no idea, by the way, that history. And I'm like, Sodipodi is such a fun name to say.
It is a fun name to say.
Yes.
It doesn't
language. And I should know the language, and I don't. It might be Polish, but I'm not 100% sure. I think it's like an Eastern European language.
One of our listeners will know.
Means,
They'll tell us. They'll let us know.
But the cool thing about Inkscape too is the fact that it's free software. I used to do like on the side, and again, this is me sort of building my social capital. A lot of developers I worked with, either like at Red Hat or in the community, would sort of have side hustles, and they would need logos for their side hustles. So I would make like, a couple $100 here and there doing logos for people. And what I thought was really cool about it is I could design the logo for them, and I could do it in all the different formats. And I could give them sort of SVG sources for everything. I only used, and mind you, in historical context, the variety wasn't that great. I actually ended up doing a project around open source fonts. And by open source fonts, I mean like openly licensed fonts. They're usually under the OFL license. I used to do like a blog series, like openly licensed font of the week, to try to get them more exposure. I think one of the things, I don't know if you know Dave Crossland, but he's done a lot for openly licensed fonts just generally. I know at one point, I don't know if he's still there, but he was working on the Google Fonts project. And that was something that unlocked a lot of great font designs. Yeah. So I was working before that era when like the pickings are kind of slim, but I would stubbornly only use open source fonts. I would design logos in Inkscape, give any of my clients the full sources, and I could give them everything on a USB stick and then include the installers for Inkscape on the thing so that they could actually, if something happened to me, they were self-sufficient. And another way that it became very useful is, working in a software company as a UX person, I'm working with different teams and I'm coming up with like mock-ups and designs for them. And I'm using Inkscape and I'm using the SVG format. And like, what happens if I get reassigned to a different team? Or what happens if I leave the company? It actually so happened that a team I had worked with for a long time, it doesn't exist anymore, but it was the Red Hat Network team at Red Hat. I'd done a bunch of design work for them over a few years. And then I got reassigned to another team. And so since I left, they didn't have my time anymore. But the developers were actually able to like download Inkscape and install it and modify the mockups and like work with them for a while after I left the team. The reason they were able to do that, because I mean, for a software engineer to ask for like an Adobe Creative Cloud license might not go over so well. The budget probably wouldn't get approved, but the fact that it's free software, they weren't hampered by the fact that, I wasn't there. They were able to go in and like modify some things. So I just think it's the autonomy and the agency that using free tools gives you is super important. So like you're not locked into like having to use one specific tool or whatever. It's an open format. And because the tool is freely available, you can use it. And I think that kind of stuff's important. So I'm just always been very passionate about it.
Yeah, that is awesome. And the idea of being able to just, pass off the stuff and, and Inkscape has been like massively improving over the years. And there's been times where I would see like a new release and they add something that has been like sought after. Like a lot of people wouldn't take this as like a big deal, but I was ecstatic. I mean, I literally yelled yes when I saw the rotational canvas. So like it's for designers, that's a huge deal. And for everybody else, it's like, it doesn't matter, but it does. It's really cool. And Inkscape just gets better and better and better. So
I want to credit Martin Owens for that, by the way, because Martin Owens, if you've ever seen his YouTube, he's a developer on the Inkscape team in the Inkscape community, and he really focuses on getting that sort of feedback from end users and prioritizing features like that. So I think that's made a big difference too.
That's awesome. I actually, I did some research while we were having this conversation, and I wanted to learn more about Sodi Podi. And so Inkscape was already named Inkscape when I found it. I didn't know Sodi Podi was a thing. So it was 2004 is when they stopped making Sodi Podi, and it was a fork. You're right. I think it's German.
Okay. What does it mean?
Soda.
Couldn't find the meaning.
Soda
yet.
pop. Gotta be soda pop. Sodi. I think pass me a Sodi, Michael. It's gotta be
soda pop. That's kind of neat.
The Sodi. I love it.
That's a K-pop Demon Hunters song. So now every time I think of Inkscape, I'll think of the soda pop song.
Yeah.
Nice anime reference.
So tell us about some of your projects that like your favorite projects you've worked on in the past that are our listeners might know. You mentioned D-Bus. That's a big one. Give us some more of your favorites, like some of the projects you're currently working on as well.
It's just been such like a smorgasbord. I would say one I have deep love for is the Podman Desktop project.
Nice.
Podman Desktop is, I would say it's a UI to let you manage containers on your system. It's kind of a developer-oriented UI. And the thought about it is if you're a developer working on apps, they're going to be deployed likely to like a Kubernetes cluster somewhere. And there's sort of a break between, well, say you're using a tool like Docker Compose to pull up your pod and like work with it. Once it gets deployed, it's not likely going to be deployed using Docker Compose. It's probably going to be deployed by some YAML in a Kubernetes cluster. So the idea behind this tool was sort of to shift that left and let you be sort of cloud native from the start and start with like kube YAML and pods from the start so that when you're ready to deploy into a Kubernetes cluster, it's sort of the orchestration of the containers isn't completely redone. Like it's not a throw over the wall type of thing. So it's set up the way that you developed it. So it kind of gives you a better loop and it shifts things left. So, we sort of expanded it a bit too. One of the last things I worked on with that team before I moved on was this AI lab. I'm bringing the conversation back to AI. I'm not trying to, but it's kind of cool because, again, it's because it's a developer-oriented tool. The thought process was, oh, well, let's make it easy for you to pull down models the way that you can pull down container images. And let's make it easy to sort of stand up sample apps so that, the idea being you're an app developer, you want to augment your app with AI features and models. And how can you do that? So it has like a bunch of recipes and stuff you can download. So it's a CNCF project, and it has a really nice community around it. Some of the most talented developers I've ever worked with. So I'm very, that one is near and dear to my heart. Another one I've worked on that people may have heard of is Anaconda. Not the data science one, but the Fedora and RHEL and other distro installer, named Anaconda because it's written in Python, and it's also kind of
knew it.
Yeah.
Knew it. I didn't ever have that confirmed, but I did.
Now we have
do.
it confirmed. Finally, we could have
And
asked.
it's interesting
We just never
because
did.
one of the people, so Anaconda, I think it started out as a kind of like a text UI, a curses app. And once they had like a graphical installer, and this must have been in like one of the first versions of Red Hat Linux I used as a wee one. It might have been like Red Hat Linux 7, maybe. I don't remember. But the cool thing about Anaconda is it had these little, like while it was installing and like installing the packages, it had these graphics. And like one of them was like this happy hot dog and a refrigerator and a soft drink. And it was like the old time, like drive-in movie theaters where it's like, let's all go to the kitchen and get a snack. It's intermission. And it had like these fun graphics. And the fella who designed those, he was a Red Hatter at the time. His name was Garrett Lesage. Now I get to work with Garrett. He's actually on my team. So it's kind of fun.
Awesome.
I used to follow him because he used to have a blog called linuxart.org, I think, or linuxart.com.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was one of those
I remember
early designers in the Linux space, and he was pretty
Yeah.
prominent in the GNOME project as well. So that project I've had a long history with, just from being a high school student using it. It's actually we did a redesign. It was probably over 10 years ago at this point, and I did the core design work for it. And it was again a great team to work with, a really great community around it. Yeah, I don't know. I guess those are like the two off the top of my head that have been really impactful.
You've worked on so many incredible things, and you have such a long history with Linux. What's one change in Linux or open source landscape that really surprised you the most? And how has that kind of influenced the work that you're doing once it happened?
Change that surprised me the most. It's a good question.
If it's
I mean,
AI, you can say it. We'll allow a third AI.
Well, it hasn't happened yet, but let
That's
me
true.
say, okay, I could say that it's a surprise. I could also say, so I'm going to mention the Bluefin project. I'm going to mention Boot-C.
Aw,
Okay.
nice.
So my entry into Linux was sort of Red Hat and RPMs and not having to compile everything. Because, you would hear about, oh, look, there's this new program out. Oh, my God, I have to compile like 20 different things and I would like to have a life. And, so RPM made that easy with all the dependency management. But, over time, it's hard to build RPMs still. You want to build a custom app and there's all these different competing formats and things like that. But one thing that I think over time, since sort of the advent of containers and Kubernetes, everybody understands how to write a container file. Everybody has pipelines to, build and deploy containers. Wouldn't it be cool if we could do the entire operating system that way? So thus is Boot-C. And Bluefin is I don't know if you've already had talked about Bluefin, so I don't want to
We've talked about it in a general sense, but not in depth. And actually, I wanted to talk to you about Bluefin anyway, because I heard some stuff about you working on Bluefin, so I wanted to know more about that.
Nice.
Yes. So all right, we'll lead into that. So Bluefin is basically, it's like an image mode. It's almost like a container-based operating system. George Castro is one of my buddies in the Bluefin project.
Oh, George.
And yeah, he likes to explain it as like an undistro.
Yes.
But it's basically taking like cloud native practices and bringing them to the desktop, which is neat. Like some of the cool things you can do with like a Boot-C system is, well, I'll give you an example. And this is sort of relates to AI. So have any of you tried to install all of the drivers and all of the software needed to get a GPU up and running on Linux?
I mean, I
Yes.
use Arch. Does that
Years
count?
ago, yeah.
It's like a Jenga tower.
Yeah.
In fact, I have a big beast sitting next to me. It's got two 3090s in it, 48 gigs of VRAM. I had it built by a guy in New Jersey because I used to build my own systems. I can't anymore. But this system is still running Fedora 39, is tightly firewalled, okay? But because I cannot bear to try to update it, and like that delicate balance of the version of like CUDA versus CUDNN, and then
Oh, yeah.
no, I can't.
Yeah.
The thing about doing it with container files in image mode, it's almost like you can roll forward, so you can update it, and it's like doing it like a git pull, and it works. Like you can kind of orchestrate the Lego pieces so they move in lockstep because it's image based. So it makes like an image based OS for GPU support, because like the drivers are kind of fragile. It makes that a lot easier to consume. So when I get to backing this beast up, I'm actually going to put a new version of Bluefin that is coming out in a couple weeks now. And I think we're calling it Bluefin GDX. And it's it's like a workstation focused towards AI workloads and GPU support. And I am hoping that will make it so that I don't have a shamedly out of date system
Yeah.
doing my AI experiments on.
And also, the updates would be much faster in that sense, because you wouldn't have
Much
to worry
easier,
about
yeah.
that side of thing.
Exactly.
And also, just for George's sake, it's not immutable, people. Not immutable.
Oh man.
I mean, it's technically because the word is just not accurate, but whatever. It is universal blue, and Bluefin also has a LTS version that they're working on. So I think there's a lot of cool stuff that's coming out in that project. So I was very curious about like the work you're doing with Bluefin, and is that related to like the AI stuff in any way, or is it just like in the like the light speed kind of stuff, or is there any kind of thing that's like kind of correlates?
So let me tell you a little bit about this. So I work my current job at Red Hat. I'm a distinguished engineer, and I work on the RHEL Lightspeed team. And what we're doing with RHEL Lightspeed is we're trying to enhance RHEL as a Linux operating system with AI enhancements. So like things like right now, one of the projects we have is called the Command Line Assistant. The Command Line Assistant is basically, it's kind of neat. The command for it is C, because C is the speed of light, E equals MC squared, kind of cute. And it has a kind of cool text animation too. But you can just do C, and then you can ask it questions about, for instance, like I'm old school. I still type yum. I don't type DNF if you're a Fedora user. I still sometimes want to type etc init instead of systemd, blah, blah, blah. So like, it's nice to like remind you of those things you kind of forgot, or like your muscle memory won't let you let go of. I can just do like, see, how do I check all the processes on the system that are using the most memory? And it'll like give you the command. Or I can ask like, oh no, what is the command I use to open up this port on my firewall? Or, oh, I got this error message. I use it a lot for like error message, figuring out like, oh crap, this error message came out, or there are other log files I can look at. Or you can even pipe excerpts of logs to it and then ask it to analyze and like, but sounds neat, cool. That's sort of just the beginning of what we can do to enhance Linux with AI. One of the principles that I'm putting forth on this stuff is you need to be able to just turn it off. Like AI shouldn't be built into any core system required functionality, and it always needs to be an augmentation, because people need to be able to have agency over whether or not they want that on their system at this point.
A lot
So
of listeners, when we talk about AI, that's the one thing they mention. It's not, I hate AI. I mean, we have some of that too. But the most requested thing is, please let us be able to turn it off. Like that's just a big, I think it's a very respectful thing to do to users, to allow them to have the option if they want to use it or not, and not having the ability to turn it off for the users who don't want it. I think would be a travesty. So I love that you're pushing that forward as a mission. I think that's very important. If one thing we've learned from our listeners, that's one of the things they appreciate most. You could put a lot of features in, but let me turn them off and we're okay.
Yes,
when they
it
lose
should
control.
be opt-in. You should be able to explore it. You should be able to have agency on whether or not you're using it. So that's like one of the guiding principles. And then some other bits about it. I think eventually the hardware is not there yet, and in terms of performance, we have projects like VLLM. It's an open source inference server. They're working on like making it so you need lower grade. Like they're optimizing inference to make it more efficient, which is eventually going to lead, I believe, to you being able to do lower grade hardware, able to actually serve models. Like at the end of the day, I think that the hardware is going to get better. It's always getting better all the time. I'm hoping we'll be at the point where every computer has, just as part of the regular system services, like we have the journal, we have System D, we should have a system inference service that is local to the system. You have local models running on the system. You shouldn't be required to hook up to some cloud service that you don't even know where's your data going or what's being done with it. It should be local inference. And any application on your system should be able to optionally tap into that large language model or image model or audio model, whatever it may be. And that can be used to augment different services. So like one of the ideas I'll say, like, and this is someone, I pitched it to a lot of people and I think everybody likes it, right? Like if you were to think of, this might date me too, but like growing up, we used to watch the Jetsons, the family of the
yeah.
future.
What's that?
And they have a robotic maid.
What's that?
Yeah.
named
How dare
Rosie.
you, Ryan?
Yes.
I want Rosie the maid to, oh, my daughter Rose is actually hovering in the corner here. She heard me say Rose and she's like, oh, Rosie. Rosie the maid for my home directory, because oh my, I copy my home directory over every time I reinstall my system or I upgrade my system, and it could use a maid. That is something that if you had, say, a large language model to analyze the content of your files, it could suggest to you different schemes for organizing your folders, and then it could offer using something like MCP tool calling to actually clean up your home directory and then keep it tidy for you, because my downloads directory is
Well, I think we just named the tool called Rosie the maid. And by the way, did you happen to name your daughter after the Jetsons maid?
I did not.
Okay. I was just curious because the two were very coincidental. So
she just kind of wandered in. She's like, what?
You know how us geeks are. We'll name our kids after stuff like, my son's named after a Star Trek person. So that's what it is.
That's just one idea. But like the idea is that inference should be a service that's just part of every workstation anyway, every Linux system. I would expand it. So with RHEL Lightspeed, we started with sort of this command line assistant tool, but there's so much more. Like command line assistant right now is just knowledge. So it'll kind of answer questions for you or like help you parse log files or help you write a Kickstart file or stuff like that. But where it could go is using MCP. Do I need to define MCP? Is that helpful at this point?
For our listeners, that could be helpful.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so MCP, it's a kind of a spec or a standard that Anthropic came up with, I would say, almost a year ago now. I think it was like last October or November I first saw the blog post about it. But it's Model Context Protocol. Sounds very fancy. It kind of is, it kind of isn't. It's really just coming up with sort of a framework for telling large language models, hey, I got some tools you could use. Here's the tool's name. Here's what it does. Know about it. And sort of inserts it in the context of the LLM. So you could say, hey, LLM, I have this tool. It's called, I don't know, the pause button. If you press this, it pauses video. And then if some user comes to the model and they're like, hey, could you pause this video for me? It'll look up in its directory of tools and be like, oh, this one pauses. Here, I'll press that button. And like, I'm overly simplifying it, but you're basically letting the model know what it can actually do. And then when it comes up in conversation with an end user, if the end user suggests something might be helpful, if it would do that, if it understands that it can do it, it will do it. It's a bit of a security nightmare. A lot of people are very smart or thinking about how do we secure this? I'm actually working on a project for this, but it's where you could get into like the automated stage where you could just like be lounging in the corner, have your laptop over there and be like, hey, laptop, come up with a letter to my boss and explain that the dog ate my homework and file some PTO for me and the filing PTO system and send the email.
I'm going to be late because those Destination Linux people upset me so much. Something like that. Yeah.
Or they're so entertaining. You know?
Yeah, I'm so
Aw.
entertained. I can't go to
Or
work.
order some
Yeah.
flowers for the Destination Linux team and have them deliver.
Oh,
But like
There we
that
go.
could actually do things, right? Not
Yes,
just yak at you. And I think that is also, I mean, that just alone, as somebody who has worked with folks with disabilities, right? That opens up commuting to a lot of people that I don't
Oh
have
my
to
gosh,
type
yeah.
or I don't have to understand like how to, like I could just have a conversation and accomplish things with it. Like there's just a lot of possibilities there. So I think that we'll probably be moving in a direction of defining for Linux what are the different MCP functions that we could offer and what levels of authorization and what types of users would want to do what things and what larger workflows could these tie into. Could we have Linux systems plugging into like broader agentic workflows, that kind of stuff? So like there's like a lot of things, like a lot of things we could do with this. But Bluefin I see as sort of an upstream project with a really vibrant community around it. It's they're working on CNCF projects like Boot C. They're building something that has a lot of excitement around it. And I think it's sort of the next generation of operating systems in a way that like I don't even think proprietary operating systems are thinking about or doing. And so I'm pushing my team to work in that community as sort of our upstream to experiment and play and see what actually helps users out. And then at a certain point, and this is the classic Red Hat story, right? Like I used to work on the Fedora team. We would build features, try things out, pilot things. If things worked, we'd pull them into Red Hat Enterprise Linux. And if they didn't work, they didn't work and the community could carry them forward, or, we could just abandon them. I mean, fail fast, fail often. That's how you get to the best ideas. And I want to have that practice in my team's work as well. So that's sort of a collaboration that we've been actively cultivating with the Bluefin community, because I think we have a lot of interest just across both teams. And, AI and open source really need to be paired together, because AI is already impacting how we live our lives. It's impacting society. And I think it's critically important that there be open source AI tooling and open source ways of interacting with AI so we have that agency.
Absolutely. I think it's really cool that you're also doing the, like, I agree completely what you're saying, but also like the interactions with Bluefin and the community stuff. That is very cool. And I real quick, because Bluefin is kind of like a cloud native type of system. If you're pulling that down from the cloud into the desktop, could we like figure out some way to describe it as a fog?
Jeez.
Fog.
Jill, can you please ask the next question?
I will.
Yeah.
So, Máirín, you've actually inspired countless people in the open source community, especially young women aiming to make their mark. What legacy do you hope to leave in open source and beyond?
I think I would just like to leave a legacy of people understanding, like, number one, you can do it. You don't have to be like a super genius or a super hacker or something. You can make an impact. The point of the community is that, honestly, it's a saying we say at Red Hat. I don't mean to be like a corporate shill, but we like to say the best ideas can come from anywhere. And the reason that community-based development is so important is anybody can show up. And of course, there's a lot of like systemic bias and barriers that as a community, like projects like Outreachy have been working to basically get rid of those barriers. But community really provides a lot of opportunity that you wouldn't otherwise have. And I think because you have that opportunity to have a say, to have agency, to be able to set direction or make decisions that impact others, having more kind of a diversity in background and perspective is going to make that software naturally better for everyone. Right. If you have just a group of people who are all very similar, from similar backgrounds, similar socioeconomic circumstances, that solution is not going to be really universally applicable. It's going to be limited. And of course, everybody wants to have the biggest impact. Nobody like wakes up in the morning and be like, yeah, I want to solve problems for like 2% of the world's population. Like, no, you want everybody, And
Get out of my head.
Absolutely.
I would say the legacy that I would want is just, if you just genuinely just want to help, and you can do it. And doing things in the open, sharing your findings, that's really the best way to do it. I don't know.
I think
It's not
that's a
super eloquent,
beautiful answer.
Beautiful.
I do want to say, though, that when you said you don't have to be a genius, the whole time we're interviewing you, I'm going, my gosh, she's a genius. So I don't know that you proved that case here, but I get the sentiment nonetheless.
I'm no kernel hacker. I'm no kernel hacker. I used to sit next to the kernel team at Red Hat's Westford office, so I'm a very humble person.
Well,
Aw.
listen, you made it through the easy part. These were kind of the kiddie questions we hit up for everybody.
Oh,
We let
gosh.
everyone have their fun.
No.
But now you enter the real gauntlet known as the lightning round. This is where the interview gets a little unfriendly. Generally, we start fighting with the interviewers. Like, we ask the hard-hitting
Go gently.
questions.
Yes.
Yeah,
This is the
this is
fun
where
stuff.
things get real. So the rules of this game are we're gonna ask the question and you gotta say the first thing that comes to your mind. No mercy, no takebacks. Are you ready?
Okay.
All right. What is your favorite snack food?
Pumpkin spice lattes.
Woohoo!
Good one. Good one.
What's the best UX design you've seen that you personally didn't write?
Good question. It's really hard because I'm super critical of all of them, and
Michael
really
AI.
good
You
design
can
is
say Michael
hard
AI
to.
if you want.
That's a hard one.
I'll skip. I'll come back to it.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll come back to that one. I told him before in the prep that that's not
That
really
is
a
It's a
so
lightning
hard
round.
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is so funny. You would think
Yeah.
you would have stuff that you've seen that you're like, but not you. You designers are something else. Let me tell you. Too
No, it's-
critical.
The
no.
NIH is very strong with designers, worse than developers. To be fair.
But so, okay, let's move on. The next one is imagine Inkscape gets zapped out of existence in a wild quantum time glitch. Just, it's gone. What program would you reluctantly turn to as a replacement, and how would you cope with the heartbreak?
Toady Pody.
Yeah. I like the old version. Yeah.
Tony. Fantastic answer. Best movie or TV show that you're embarrassed to admit you like?
I'm not embarrassed to admit I like anything, but I would say one that is top of mind for me is K-pop Demon Hunters. And the reason is
Nice.
there's this whole thing about the Han Moon, and they have to sing. And if they sing great and they build community around their music, then the Han Moon becomes healthier and it protects them from the demons. That kind of sounds like the open source community, doesn't it? And doesn't it seem like the K-pop band are like those open source contributors building the software that users are loving, and then it protects them from the demons of proprietary software?
I like
I like it.
Nice.
I like it.
Sweet.
So the
Wait.
next
Wikipedia
Red Hat Summit,
on
we're
that show.
gonna have some kind of musical pop out. Yeah, you know,
Real
like some
orc.
K-pop.
Karaoke.
In a parallel universe where you're not where you're not an open source wizard, what totally random job would you be doing? Professional penguin trainer or maybe galactic food critic?
You know,
Ryan wrote that, not me.
What?
I do
You could
have
be
a
a
wacky
penguin.
one. It was a second career that I almost pursued in a very dark moment. I would probably work for the Irish government promoting the Gaelic language. I think Irish is a minority language. It is my
Cool.
family's ancestral language. And I think that languages encode culture in such a way that it's just an incredible loss for the entire world when a language is lost. And if you have ever been to Ireland, or if you read about things in Ireland and, isn't that a funny name? No, it actually means something. And to be able to tour Ireland and understand what the place names mean in the origin of the language, it's such a beautiful way to actually connect with the land and the culture. And there's so many things. I'll throw one thing out there. I know it's a lightning round, but like, one of the things in the Irish language that I prefer than the English language, it's a very healthy perspective. If I was to say I'm sad in the English language, it might mean I have the feeling of sadness, or it might mean I am sadness itself, because it's I am sad. But in Irish, you don't say I am sad with that grammatical form. You say the sadness is on me, ta bronorm. which means that it's almost like putting on a hat or like putting on a jacket. You can take it off. So you are not your feelings. And just fundamentally embedded deep in the language, feelings are a temporary thing that passes. I think it's a much healthier way to look at the world. And that's one of those things that's just embedded deeply in the language. So yes, I would probably work on promoting the Irish language.
That's an amazing
very
answer,
cool.
but I'm going to put you down as penguin trainer. All right, Michael.
They're stinky. I'm in Boston. I go by the Boston Aquarium, the New England Aquarium all the time. The penguins kind of they need some deodorant. Sorry.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the next one's going to be a really easy one. And, but it is controversial, but it's going to be easy.
Hate mail coming your way.
So, what once and for all, which is the best? Vim, Nano, Emacs. And
that is so easy. Vim. What's wrong with you? What is it? ESC Control C? Like, it's harder than playing a baritone saxophone. I can't play because my fingers aren't long enough. I can't use Emacs because my fingers aren't long enough for those key combos.
That's true.
Awesome.
Yeah, and also they're very specific.
So, for our Nano and Emacs listeners, where can people get a hold of you, Mo?
No. /dev/null.
Nice.
We will actually have links in the show notes if you want to get a hold of Mo. But Mo, thank you so much for joining us on Destination Linux. We not only had an amazing time at the Red Hat Summit, which Red Hat rolled out the red carpet for us. We appreciate it so much. But we got to meet you and so many amazing people. What you've done for open source does not go unnoticed. You're a legend to us. Thank you for all of your passion. I'm so happy with people like you working on open source. And I mean that. And helping in so many ways, from user experience to AI to just all of the tools that you're working on. Truly inspiring. And thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. You're too nice.
We love you, Maureen.
So what an incredible interview again. Thank you, Mo, so much for coming on the show and for telling us your amazing story. And thank every one of you, because without you, we wouldn't be able to get amazing people like Mo on this show. If we didn't have all these listeners around the world supporting the show, watching, hanging out with us, we couldn't have this amazing platform. So thank you for watching, listening, however you do it, to Destination Linux. We love your faces, and you can come join us on our Discord by going to tuxdigital.com/Discord, where you can hang out with the community and talk about the show. I was really excited, Michael, that I went into the Discord the other day and I went into the show section, and right after you finally released the last episode, because you were late, it came out on we shouldn't air this probably on the air with people, but you were late. But as soon as you posted it,
you're me that you're like you're going to give me a hard time on the show.
Yeah,
that's new.
So unprofessional, that's
a brand new thing that you've never done before. Wow, wow.
But people were immediately talking about the show, which is really cool. So it's a really great place to hang out, talk about the show, talk about Linux. We have all kinds of awesome communities there. Even if you want to talk about TVs and movies, take a break from Linux and open source. I don't know why you'd want to, but you could. They're all there. Everything's there for you.
Or combine the two and talk about Plasma Big Screen.
There you go. I like it.
There you go. But you can check it out, the tuxdigital.com/Discord, and you can get access to the patron-only section of our Discord server by becoming a patron. And to do that, you just go to tuxdigital.com/membership. Plus, you also get a bunch of cool perks like being able to watch the show live, get unedited episodes of the show if you can't watch it live, and so much more, including merch discounts at our store. That's right. You can go to tuxdigital.com/store and pick up some awesome swag. We have hats, t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, and so much more at tuxdigital.com/store.
Fancy cheese. All kinds of stuff.
We don't have fancy cheese because that would require us to have a license to sell food. And also, I'm pretty sure like cheese has its own kind of license, like eggs do or whatever.
Really? There's a special cheese license?
There probably is. There's a special eggs license. So there's probably a special cheese license because you can get like mold and stuff on it.
Next show, we're going to talk about the cheese license and whether it's open source or not.
Oh, I would love to have a cheese license. I went Wensleydale. That's one of my favorite cheeses in the world, and it's hard to get.
Man, I think this cheese thing could go somewhere. We need to talk about cheese in the next episode.
I mean, it could be a little bit chaos and have debris everywhere.
It's probably going to be a little cheesy.
And make sure to check out the cool shows here on Tux Digital. That's right. We have an awesome network of shows to fill your whole week with geeky goodness. Head to tuxdigital.com to keep those Linux penguins marching.
Man, Ryan, put those glasses on again.
Mm-mm.
You look so sharp, Cheddar.
Everybody, have a great week. And just remember that the journey itself is more important than the destination. See what I did there? Mo important.
Yeah.
I can't say important right if I say mo. Mo important. I can't do it. It's about try it, Michael.
It's okay. It's the journey
important.
itself is just as wow.
Emote.
I'm serious. Mo important. You can't say it after saying mo.
Mo important. Wow,
Mo important.
It does take effort. It takes effort.
Everyone practice that in your car. How many people right now are sitting in their car practicing mo important?
Say it 10 times fast.
More important. Mo
important. Mo important.
Yeah, that's our ending.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Love you all.
Most of you.